People in our small town have long been intrigued by the old mansion at the end of Willow Street. There were rumors of eerie twins who lived there long ago and were suspected of being witches due to their physical abnormalities. Everyone who dared to listen couldn't help but be touched by their fate and chilled to the bone by the tale of the angry mob who tormented and murdered them, all of which had become a scary legend. Abigail and Agatha, the twins, were born with twisted limbs, spines curved like gnarled trees, and skin as pale as death itself. People in the town claimed that they communicated with the dead in the shadows of their dilapidated house, and they were blamed for every bit of ill fortune that had ever befallen the people of the town. They were feared, avoided, and eventually accused of witchcraft. One fateful night, a mob of enraged locals stormed the house of the twins with torches in hand and, in a fit of rage and paranoia, lynched them, condemning their innocent souls to a horrific end. Even that wasn't enough for the vengeful townspeople. As time passed, the spirits of those who died rose up in the old house to continue tormenting the twins in death as they had in life. The old house remained silent for many years, its secrets concealed by overgrown ivy and forgotten memories. The terrible fate of Abigail and Agatha was reduced to little more than a ghostly echo in the town's past and a scary story for kids to tell around campfires. On one warm July night, something changed. We gathered as a group, eager and daring, to look into the truth of the legend. There were 5 of us: the adventurous Sarah, the skeptic David, the bookish researcher Emily, the techie Alex, and me, who could never resist a good mystery. The old mansion was cast in ominous shadows by the moon as we parked our cars safely apart from it. We set out on our mission to debunk the myth around Abigail and Agatha with spotlights, cameras, and a mix of anxious excitement. We were committed to demonstrating once and for all that the legend was a fabrication. As we got closer to the house, the air became colder and the wind began to whisper through the trees, almost as if the air itself were warning us to go back. We opened the creaking door, despite our uneasiness, and the door's protesting creaking hinges. Inside, the house appeared to be stuck in time. The opulence that formerly existed could be seen in the dust-covered furnishings and faded wallpaper. As we started our investigation, we set up cameras and recording devices in several rooms in an effort to document any paranormal activity. Emily started piecing together the twins' terrible tale by digging through her bag of outdated town records. Only eerie silence and the sporadic bump or squeak from the old house could be heard for hours. David mocked our efforts and said they were a waste of time. But as the evening drew on, our sense of confidence weakened. Then it happened. Our candles went out as a chilling gust of wind surged through the room, leaving us in the dark. As our flashlights flickered and eventually died, fear overcame us. On the walls, shadows danced and took on ominous shapes. Then the voices started. A terrifying voice that seemed to be coming from everywhere at once shouted, "Three hands!" A strange blue light suddenly filled the room, and 2 individuals appeared in front of us. The distorted faces of the deformed twins, Abigail and Agatha, were filled with pain and anguish as they stared at us with an unfathomable fire in their eyes. Emily stumbled over her bag of papers and shook her head.
"It's them, the twins!"
she shouted, terrified. David was as pale as a sheet and had completely lost all of his self-confidence. Under a trembling breath, he murmured,
"This is not possible."
The ethereal forms of the twins moved slowly, their hands held out towards us, as if begging for our help. At that moment, more spirits appeared. Vicious, violent spirits, with inhuman glares of pure hatred. In an effort to get away from the angry apparitions, we retreated while tripping over broken furniture. The front door slammed shut with an audible crash as we reached it. The vengeful ghosts of the people who had killed the twins encircled us, trapping us inside. The walls of the room seemed to wrap around us and close in on us, as though they were alive. The ghastly figures approached closer, as their chorus of wails and violent screams grew louder. In the midst of our terror, Alex took out his phone and started desperately looking for something to drive the ghosts away. Our hearts were thumping in our chests as we huddled close to each other in an effort to shut out the terrifying apparitions. Just in the nick of time, we heard Alex chanting. It was in a foreign language that the rest of us didn't understand. Slowly, we started to pick up on the words and began chanting with him. Whatever this spell was seemed to be working. Suddenly, a bright light and a loud roar then descended into the empty room. The ghosts backed away, their shapes fading away like smoke in the wind. As the light grew stronger and the room appeared to tremble, we covered our eyes. When we opened our eyes once more, we found ourselves outside watching the ancient house burn to the ground. The vengeful ghosts of the townspeople had been banished, and the spirits of Agatha and Abigail had been set free of their eternal prison. The house was consumed by the flames and reduced to ashes as we watched. The twins and their tormentors' presence diminished. After the cleansing, the atmosphere seemed to be lighter. The only sounds left in the night were the ominous chirping of crickets and the crackling of fire. As we stood there, gathering our thoughts and taking in the devastation, we understood that what we had seen was beyond our ability to comprehend. The spirit seeking retribution had been very much alive, and the story of Abigail and Agatha had been all too true. Our trip turned into a nightmare that would keep us up at night for the rest of our lives. The old house on Willow Street was no longer a myth. Instead, it served as a warning, a symbol of the evil that sometimes lurks in the past, ready to be unleashed by those who dare to seek the truth. After the old house on Willow Street had been reduced to smoldering ruins, we stood there in shock and disbelief, our faces illuminated by the eerie glow of the fading embers. The night was silent once more, but the aftermath of our encounter with Abigail, Agatha, and the vengeful spirits of their murderers was devastating. We were all trembling, our hearts still racing, and our minds unable to comprehend the horrors we had just witnessed. David was the first to break the silence.
We need to go to the authorities,
he said, his voice shaking.
They won't believe us, but they have to investigate the fire.
Emily nodded in agreement, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination.
We have to tell them everything about the spirits, the ghosts, and what happened here tonight.
Alex had managed to salvage his phone from the chaos. He looked pale but resolute.
I've got some footage on my phone. It might not prove everything, but it's something.
We made our way back to our cars, our footsteps heavy with the weight of the night's events. As we drove to the nearest police station, we couldn't help but wonder if they would believe our story. Ghosts, vengeful spirits, and a house reduced to ashes were not the kind of evidence that typically held up in a court of law. When we arrived at the station, we were met with skepticism and incredulity. The police officers listened to our account with raised eyebrows, exchanging doubtful glances. But when we showed them the footage on Alex's phone, their expressions shifted from disbelief to concern.
We'll send a team to investigate the site,
one of the officers finally said, his voice somber.
but I wouldn't get my hopes up. Old houses like that can be fire hazards, and the rest, well, it's pretty hard to believe.
With a sense of resignation, we left the police station, feeling both relieved that we had reported the incident and frustrated by the lack of understanding we had encountered. We knew that the chances of anyone finding concrete evidence of the supernatural were slim. In the days that followed, the town buzzed with rumors about the fire and our strange encounter. Some dismissed it as a wild hoax, while others speculated about the cursed history of the old house. But we knew the truth. We had witnessed the evil spirits seeking revenge, and we had narrowly escaped their wrath. As time passed, the memories of that night haunted us, creeping into our thoughts and dreams. We couldn't escape the feeling that instead of banishing the spirits, we had perhaps allowed them to escape into our own minds. This weighed heavily on our hearts, knowing that our curiosity may have doomed us all. Months turned into years, and the town slowly moved on from the incident. The site of the old house on Willow Street remained empty, a solemn reminder of the horrors that had occurred there. We, too, tried to move on with our lives, but the events of that night continued to cast a long shadow over us. One by one, we left the town, seeking solace in new places and new beginnings. But no matter where we went, the The memories of Abigail and Agatha, the twins who had been wronged in life and tormented in death, followed us like ghosts. Maybe the murderous spirits really were inside of us, or maybe it was all a creation of our own minds. Either way, escape became impossible for us, and so our lives became a tapestry of haunted dreams and restless nights, a constant reminder of the darkness that could lurk in the forgotten corners of the world. The legend of Abigail and Agatha was no longer just a tale told around campfires. It was a part of us, etched into our souls like a curse. The fact that we had freed the twins was little comfort to us as we suffered in perpetual misery. In the end, we learned a haunting lesson about the past's enduring power and the consequences of unearthing long-buried secrets. The old house on Willow Street may have been reduced to ashes, but the legacy of the twins and their tormentors lived on, a chilling reminder that perhaps some stories should remain buried, forever shrouded in darkness and mystery.